Welcome everyone once again to the Spanish Breakfast Show live on YouTube Spain. Cue the music. Well, that surprised you, didn't it? Normally we have the music first. Good morning, I'm Skatz, and on today's show we're continuing our Moving to Spain countdown, which is happening every 2 weeks at the moment until I and my lovely wife Liz set off for Spain in 4 weeks' time. Eek! It's getting close now. So this week it's part 2, and we're looking at what you can do 6 months in advance of moving. And we'll compare my situation as an EU citizen with someone who's applying for a Non Lucrative Visa. And doing that with his usual expertise is Chris from Upsticks. He's our resident relocation expert live in Spain. As usual, you can ask questions live now or anytime during the show in the chat box, where my lovely wife Liz is waiting for you under the name YouTube Yoga. And she'll be answering questions too because she's moving with me. Yay! One final thing before we begin, you can support this channel by finding the link below to our merchandise page and getting yourself a hoodie or a t-shirt. I've got the new t-shirt through, or you can get mugs or phone cases. One of our regular listeners, hopefully James, or Nerve as he's called on his handle there, he got one, and I'm hoping he's going to send me a photograph so we'll be able to put him up on the screen. So without further ado, let's speak to Chris live from Malaga. Good morning, Chris.
Morning. How you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. Nice, lovely weather still here. I'm in Chilches at the moment, which is just down the coast. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's lovely. Is that just east of Malaga?
That's right. Yeah, east. Yeah, so Chilches is just past a place called Rincon de Victoria, and the next big town is Torre del Mar, and it's just in the middle of those two.
Right. Excellent.
So, in preparation for the air show, there's an air show this weekend here.
Oh, very nice. So many things to see in Andalusia, aren't there? So many festivals going on.
It is, yeah.
And Liz said the sound went again. That sound seems to be going at the start of the broadcast, but it comes back very quickly. So apologies for that, everybody. Just carry on listening. It's only temporary. Okay. So let's get on with today. 2 weeks ago, we talked about what to do when you have a year or more to go, which for me was all about being a bit confused and chaotic and not knowing anything, which is reflected on the way that I waffled 2 weeks ago about what it was like. And there was needing to learn Spanish, and it was all very emotional at that point. But today we're going to talk about what to do with 6 months to go, which is where I think it really started to change from being more of a dream. And it's like having Post-it notes stuck everywhere and thinking, I need to think about that and that. It changed from that to being more of a kind of a mind map with everything being connected by loads of different pieces of string. And I think that Liz and I had done loads and loads of research, but we still had loads of questions. And that's when we got in touch with you, Chris, to start the sort of organisational ball rolling. So before I give a sort of list of things and start off on that, of what we're doing, let's have your viewpoint of what you think that the people who are applying for a non-lucrative visa need to be doing and preparing to do at around about 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the 6 month point is where it becomes real, isn't it? People start thinking, right, hey, and it comes around quick. I mean, certainly for the non-lucrative visa clients, people who are coming over, depending on where you're going to be applying from, you need to start looking at putting a timeline together of when you're going to actually start your documentation, because there's obviously some documents which are time sensitive, like your ACRO criminal records check and your healthcare, your health certificate. They're all time sensitive. So it's very, at that point, really, and what we do with people is we set a timeline in place. So we're like, okay, you need to be applying for the appointment here. This is the appointment date, the target appointment date, the target move date, and stuff like that. So I think a timeline, as I said, is very important. You can also, I think as we mentioned before when we were chatting, the financial side of things is important as well. So, depending on when you move to Spain, it's probably a good idea now, if you're doing things like having to sell a property or buying a property, or you're, with a non-lucrative visa, people being making adjustments with their income structures, whether it be pensions, savings, etc., etc. So I do think at that point as well, it's never too early. 6 months is a great time to start looking and talking to professionals about your tax and financial situation. You know, that's definitely a good thing to do. And
any
obviously,
actual documents that you can have prepared by then, or is it too early for that?
it's too early at that point to actually prepare any documentation. You know, actual documents to get prepared for your appointment, it's too early. Things like this might sound the craziest thing, but things like getting stamped bank account statements, which you're going to need 6 months down the line, if that's how you're proving your financial stability at the bank. You might just want to check that you can get those. You know, you don't need to get all the way down the line and actually get to your bank and they turn and go, no, stamp. You know, a lot of people don't issue them, so you know. That's something to check. You can, at this point as well, start looking at the healthcare, you know, the health insurance options. Obviously you don't want that in place until as close to the appointment as possible. But again, as part of your budgeting, you know, and finding out how much things are going to cost, it can't harm in speaking to providers and stuff surrounding the healthcare as well.
So it is, like you say, it's all about making a list of the sort of documents that you're going to need and checking whether that you're going to be able to get them and when you need to get them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we do. So we start at the top and we've got like a 12 point or 11 point, depending on what documents are needed. And literally there's a timeline on the documents. So we need to do like A now, B now. You know, you can't really get the documents which are time sensitive. You get them in a folder and have them physically there. Your application forms, you quite possibly could, but everything else has to be recently dated for your appointment. There's nothing stopping you having it all organised, ready to hit the button.
So at that point, we'd anything else?
No, I think it's about it. And I was just going to mention about the obviously the Spain side of things, where you really at that point, I suppose, you need an idea of where you're going to be and where you're going to be living. I mean, I'm assuming most people do, but now with the freedom of traveling, what we're noticing is more people are doing small discovery trips. Obviously, you couldn't do that before because of COVID, but there's more people that are planning into their allotted 90 days, maybe 6 weeks, spread over 3 trips, just to find out where they really fancy living before they actually go for their visa appointment. So,
The funny thing is, we'd started packing. That's one of the first things we did, was start packing for the trip, which sounds really, really silly for 6 months to go, but we needed to know. It's part of the timeline, really. We looked ahead on the timeline and we thought, we need to know how much we're going to spend on the move. So we need to have a look at what the removals are going to cost. And in order to get a removals quote, we needed to find out how many boxes we needed to put on the van. And it turned out to be a really good idea, because it was a good idea. It was a good time for us to declutter the house and give away and discard lots of possessions and sell stuff. And it's a good way of clearing the mind at the time as well. And the more that we did it, the more we realized there was stuff that we didn't actually need to take with us. So so that put us kind of ahead of the game. And like you say, we were,
No, this has a very, very, very valid point, because the budget, I mean, from the Spain side, we can sort of estimate what your budget's going to be for the paperwork and administratively, but obviously you've got that first-hand experience there in Ireland, or in the UK, what the budget's going to be that end. I mean, that's something that's slightly alien to me, like the moving costs, and the cost of getting rid of stuff if you're moving over. That's all a big part of the budget, isn't it?
Yeah, true. I mean, there's certain things like we decided to take to sell our old car because it was worth plenty of money, and it's a right-hand drive car, and it wouldn't sell for much in Spain. So we decided to sell that and get a much cheaper one that we could take all of the seats out, a kind of a big car, because we decided Another thing on the list was we're taking our pet with us, so we decided to drive, go on the ferry. So we need a bigger car so we can get a cage in it. So you have to kind of work backwards from every decision that you make. And so we got a Ford Galaxy, which is a 7-seater, and we're going to chuck away all of the back seats, basically, which is another cost because you have to go to the tip to get rid of those. That's funny.
Wow.
We've got a note from Liz. She started packing before Christmas. In fact, the first thing I packed was our Halloween decorations because we knew we were going to be moving before the next Halloween. So yeah, it was more than 6 months ago.
Good. Halloween being a big thing here now. When I first moved to Spain, the only time you'd ever see Halloween was in the discos, because the discos were quite international and get people in the door using Halloween. But now it's massive here. Halloween's huge.
Wow, that's interesting. And do you have trick or treat? Because they didn't used to have that in the UK, but it came over from America.
We do, but my local, we're digressing here now, so apologies to the listeners. But my local, where we live in an urbanisation which is it's 99.9% Spanish apart from us. And they do trick or treat, but they haven't quite adopted the thing of going around in small families and everybody arranged to meet, so you'd have like 100 people literally knocking on every, together. And I did have to explain that that's not the idea, that we'll go and terrorize as a big group, so and that was just before COVID. So we're getting there. But the idea is that we don't all go around 100 people knocking on everybody's door, clean them out and then leave. So the idea is we go as family groups, So.
Good plan.
But,
it is more of a family thing in Spain. I know Christmas is like that. But yes. Anyway, let's get back to the point. Let's see. What other things were we doing? We were looking for property, like you mentioned before, but we were starting to pull it together and get everything into focus, narrowing it down to different little areas and knowing where we needed to be in terms of being able to get internet, because that's very important to us because of doing this channel. I need to have good internet wherever I am. So everything was all about pulling into focus. We were also organising currency exchange because it's a good idea to be ahead of the game on that. And if you think the exchange rate's going to go down, which it might do, there's no way of knowing, but if you think it's going to go down, then it's a good idea to tie in a rate now.
Right. Okay. So before you're traveling, that's a very valid point. So getting your currency looked at, and how you're going to move your money across, I suppose, as well. That's something. I've noticed that more people are using things like the online banks, like Revolut and N26 and stuff like that. I've noticed the rise in the popularity of those, but I think it's hard to do before you get here, but it's still advisable to have a high street bank once you're here. You need one in Spain for various things, but the online banks, which are aimed at expats, seem to work very well.
I think I'm going to have a separate one just in case. We think we'll have a personal online account, but we'll do business accounts with the larger banks. That seems like a good way of doing it, just in case they freeze your accounts, which is a sort of panicky message you get on Facebook groups every now and then. The banks can freeze your accounts if they think that you owe them some money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a little bit of, I've been here 21 years and never had my bank account frozen. I know I have had embargoes. Now, what an embargo is, and it's probably good to explain this for people who are looking to come over in 6 months' time, because there's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of scaremongering, because there have been people who have lost money and until you look at their personal circumstance, you don't know the exact reason why. But an embargo on an account is something that's come from most probably the tax office, and the tax office has been directed by someone else that you owe money. Okay, so the banks can't just say, we need a bit of extra money this month, we're going to block your account. It doesn't work like that, They have to have that order, and that order has to come from the tax office, and the tax office have to have a reason to be able to justify that reason. So I'll give you an example. I might have got a couple of speeding tickets that I wasn't aware of, or I might have sat in my box and I didn't even pull out a couple of years ago, and then one for some reason got embargoed out of my account. Now the other one actually got paid through my tax return. So when you are owed money from the tax man, well, they pay themselves what money's owed if you owe any money to any authorities like the DGT, and if you have got no money sat in an account with the tax office, and they'll embargo your account, and it evidently comes with the relevant interest and everything else. So yeah, I mean, as long as you're in theory, as long as you're legal, you should never have a problem with the banks. But they do have that facility if instructed by the tax office to take money.
Yeah, I think the other reason for us doing a separate account is because I want to keep the business account separate for the sake of my Hestor, so that he can just look at one account and say this is all to do with business, and tick it off all the way down.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And actually, I watched a really good YouTube video in Spanish on it the other day about the common mistakes of autónomos here. And it was that autónomos generally tend to keep one account, and that account is the income, the RPF fee, which is the 20%, which is retained on a quarterly basis, and the VAT. So you never actually know really where you are until you do your return. So it's always a good idea to have a separate account for your VAT and your tax, of which, you know, your suspected tax, and then pay yourself into another account. And you know, that's definitely a sensible idea, because it also means that the accountant or your gestor can literally look at that account and see where you are. You know, your expenses, tax, and VAT will go in there.
Very handy. Yeah, so that's something at 6 months in advance. You could be looking at bank accounts and just seeing what you're going to be doing in the future. Although it's not worth starting a bank account quite at that point.
No, I mean, a high street bank, no. Maybe one of the, you know, if you are looking at opening an online bank account, that can be done, you know, so at that point. But yeah, you know, you can't. It's good to be doing research as well. I think we've mentioned before on the show that it's also down to where you're going to live. So it's always a good idea to open a high street account in the town where you're going to live, and you might find that it's one bank works slightly better than the other one, you know. So it's where you feel comfortable. So although it's going to be half people who haven't actually been in Spain and done a discovery trip, if you're looking at going to Frigiliana, for example, maybe research the branches which are in Frigiliana and jump on the groups and say, hey, which one's the best branch, you know, or who do you deal with? Because it can be as personal as I deal with Jose in Cajamar, and he's the best, because, you know, or it could be, you know, a different bank. So it's definitely something to look into.
Well, it could be the one who's connected to your mortgage broker, if you're going to buy a house, because
again,
that's the place where you're going to get your mortgage.
Yeah, again, I mean, more and more we do things online, but definitely whoever's, that's a good shout as well. Yeah.
And another thing that is good to be doing, I think this doesn't relate to us because we don't own our own property here, but if you're selling your house in the UK or anywhere else that you're moving from, this is a good time to at least have your house on the market, if not being near to completion. You know, it depends on whether you can, how long it's going to take to go through. I think my father's house, which once it went through probate and was cleared and ready for sale, it took a week to actually sell it. It was gone within 7 days. But then, partly because of COVID and partly because the process takes a little bit of time in the UK, it was 3 or 4 months after that when it actually completed.
Right. Okay.
So, so you'd be talking about, you know, still having a period of 2 months after that where you'd have to rent a property and, you know, move out. But at least you've got the finances sorted out. And also, if you're thinking about your capital gains tax from your UK property and timing that so that you move to Spain and you don't have to worry about the capital gains tax in Spain, depending on whether you're in the first half or the second half of the year, and actually registered for tax in Spain that year. And it's a good idea to be thinking about that and getting the financial advice about that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good shout, and I think I think on the other end as well, when you're moving to Spain, I think if you're looking in 6 months' time, you may have to prepare slightly for when you land, because there are certain parts of the year, like August, for example, where it's very difficult to get anything done. So flexibility at both ends. So if you have got a target date for the consulate appointment, and you need all your paperwork from the UK sorted out, just be slightly flexible. If you are selling a house, that you've got somewhere to go, while you're waiting for your visa, because they say it could be anything up to 90 days. We know at the moment it's taking 3 to 5 weeks to come through from most consulates. But that flexibility of actually when you get your visa to when you land in Spain, you need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared to be flexible. You have somewhere to live both ends with flexible entrance and leaving dates.
We got a note from Liz there as well. Liz says it's a seller's market now in the UK. She heard that some properties are going for up to 5 to 7% more than the asking. I think this is it's partly to do with COVID, because there was a bottleneck of sales, and because people couldn't actually go and look at houses, there were so many people actually wanting to buy that suddenly when the floodgates opened again. And also there was this thing where there was the tax, what's it called now?
There's a tax break, wasn't there, for the what's it called?
Whatever it's called, we'll come up with it in a minute. I'm sure Liz will tell us. And that was it used to be like 125,000 that you paid it, any property worth over that, but they raised it to about 500,000, so we didn't end up paying it. And the purchase tax is coming down in Andalusia actually by 1%, I believe in December as well. So that's something to factor in if you are buying a property, not buying it now, buying it in December. So yeah, that's good. Good to know.
That's coming down.
So yes, property, that was something to be looking at 6 months, and the rest of your finances as well. I suppose it's a good time to look at what your pension situation is if you're even if you're not at pension age. It's a good idea to be looking at that, as far in advance as possible. We had pensions advisors on here recently talking about that, and so that's another good reason for you to get your Spanish accountant sorted out, your gestor, so you can have a talk about those kind of things if there's anything you need to prepare in advance. Stamp duty, definitely. Stamp duty, Liz says, that's what it's called.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm completely removed from the UK housing market, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So that's it. And healthcare, obviously, healthcare is a biggie. Planning your healthcare moving forward. We touched on it, but even when you arrive in Spain, just making sure that if there is anything that you need, that you can do your research beforehand. So when you get here, that you're that you're prepared.
Yeah. And
because it doesn't just stop with the appointment. You get the magical policy for your non-lucrative visa appointment, or for your EU residency appointment, or whatever, or but that does continue. You have to carry on paying it. So it's probably a good idea to have a healthcare plan, in place. See where the hospitals are which you're allowed to use, and if you have the opportunity to switch it to then state healthcare, which in some circumstances you can do, how's that going to work? So that's all stuff that you can plan in advance.
Yeah, it's good. I made a little note here saying that though there are things that you can't do until closer to the time, this is definitely the time to plan them, and the nearer you get to moving, the more you'll find that these plans can be tied up. And a lot of these things, I suppose, we'll be talking about in the next show in 2 weeks' time, about the at 3 months' time, because that's when it really starts hotting up in terms of paperwork. But we'll come to that then.
What's the? I'll ask you a question. What do you have to do in the UK then? So we're okay what you have to do in Spain and preparing the paperwork to leave. But in reverse of that, is there something that you need to be doing now in terms of deregistering or telling HMRC? What would you be doing if you're in Ireland or in the UK? Is there any paperwork? Because we're always talking about the preparation of paperwork to come, which is always like preparing your application forms, etc. But on the other end, is there something you need to be doing there?
Well, The sort of things that I've been doing are we've checked out pensions. We got a pensions forecast from the UK,
Hmm.
so that was good to know. So I got the piece of paper saying this is what's going to happen in the future. What else did we do? You have to again, we're even too far, even 4 weeks away now. We're too far ahead to be doing some of it, but you need to know from your electricity company what date you're going to leave and how many days in advance they might need. So you need to check in advance like that whether they need a month's notice to cancel something. And we checked with our mobile phone accounts. So yeah, checking with all the utilities is a big one, I suppose. What else? Do you have to deregister your internet account? I suppose that's another utility. Tell your landlord that you're going to leave if you're renting. That's a good one. We told
Yeah.
ours quite far in advance so that we gave them lots and lots of notice. It's it's a good idea to have a good relationship with your landlord and landlady. So if you can give them plenty of notice in advance, then they'll look on you favourably when it comes to getting your deposit back. I would say, if you've got that kind of good relationship.
That's good. It's funny. You just popped it. It's because when registering vehicles here, and I didn't mention this before. It just reminded me now. When you come to bring a vehicle, and you have to pass it through customs. Obviously, you drive it, but there's a there's a process you have to go to. Most people employ a customs agent to do it for you, and they will need proof that you've left. So, sometimes people sign off from their local council and have a letter saying they were registered from X date to X date. Some people use the tax HMRC forms, which prove they're no longer registered to pay tax, or, they've given up their company and stuff like this. So that is something that you could be preparing as well. Even talking to an import agent about what documents they're going to require to either to release your personal shekels or your vehicle tax free.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something
Yeah.
you can certainly be preparing down.
Good point. And thinking about your tax disc, that's one thing that came to us. I just realised that the tax runs out on the car that we're driving over there at the end of October. Now we leave
Okay.
on the 8th of October, and you can't apply for your tax disc more than a month before the tax runs out. So we're
Right.
stuck in this situation where we can apply on the 1st of October, but there's no guarantee you're going to get our tax disc through here before the 8th when we leave, in which case when it gets to the end of October and we're still driving the car around in Spain, it's going to be out of tax, even though we've paid for it. So what we're having to do is this. I had to phone the tax office and they said, what you're going to have to do is send in the form with a payment in advance and a letter saying, can I have it sent to this address in Spain? And we'll deal with it. And on the 1st of October, we'll send out the tax disc and it'll go to Spain.
Right, excellent.
Which is a little bit worrying because, do you trust that to put your bank card details in the post? And do you trust the post to get it to get the tax disc to Spain? Do you trust the Spanish post if you've never used it before? What is the correo like? You hear I've heard nightmares of people on the Facebook group as usual of people saying, I never get my post through. I've had things just go completely missing and my paperwork's just not got through. So
I'll give you an address. You can use our office address. Never gets lost. There you go.
Oh, brilliant.
There you go. I'll give you that. You can use that, and I guarantee you'll get there.
Brilliant. Everybody uses Chris's address then.
Everybody. You'll come and see me. Pick it up. It's not a problem. We use it all the time. It really annoys the concierge. Sit downstairs. Really annoys him because we're the only people that receive so much mail. Another one. I said, you don't have to bring them up every time. Just leave them downstairs, and I'll pick them up. And every time there's another one. This is the fourth one today because it's either a courier or the registered post, and then someone else. And so it's quite funny. But yeah, no problem. Use my address. It's not a problem.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. So what else did we have to do? We decided, like I mentioned before, we decided how we were going to get across. So we decided on a car and a ferry, And I mean, particularly this year, we thought when everything opens up for people going on holiday again, because it was all shut before, if it suddenly opens up in September and October, then everything's going to be booked up, and all of the flights are going to be booked, and the ferries are going to be booked, and they're going to be full, with people moving because once the floodgates open. So we decided to book our ferry quite far in advance, and I think it was more than 6 months in advance, just because we have to get a cabin that's dog friendly as well. So we're limited to which ferries we can actually get.
Which brings me to another question that just popped into my head. At what point do you start the pet paperwork?
Yes, that's a good one. Liz can clarify this. Actually, she knows the timings on it. There are certain vaccinations that you've got to get. Our dog has got their one injection in February of this year, so that counts for another year and a half. But there's one that we need to get, the rabies in particular, you have to get, and that counts from Ireland as well. But I think the dog passport has changed now. I think for people in the UK, they can't use the old one; they have to use a new EU one, I think. Now I don't know many details on that because we've not had to look into it.
Right. Well, that brings us other members of the family. Something that we didn't mention was kids and minors. And if you have got children and you're looking at putting them into school, then that's something you need to be looking at 6 months before as well.
Yeah. Let's see what this says down here. This says at least 21 days. This is at least 21 days in advance. You need to do the rabies injection and get your dog passport. And we've been talking about getting a photograph on the dog passport as well. That's some suggestion that somebody's given, and they said they had a cat passport to get their injections on there, and they actually put a cute photo on the cat passport, and they said that really helped when they got to the port, and really? It got a laugh, and it got them through really quickly. So that's a nice little hint from somebody. So we're going to do that because we do have a cute dog. So
it would be great to hear anybody else's experience about what they do, because everything that, as I was saying, we do is focused on what you need to do to move, but there doesn't seem to be that much information on what you have to do to leave. So maybe it'd be good to hear from people on the chat, wouldn't it? What they're actually doing to prepare to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liz saying removals are a minefield, so do shop around. As we had quotes from €4,500 to 11,000 for the same amount of stuff, and that is very true. Yeah, and sometimes they don't narrow it down to exactly how much you need. So I think it was only when we got a company that said, no, actually, if this is the number of boxes you've got, this is exactly, you don't need such a big lorry. So and we can do it for this price. And although they weren't the cheapest, they were the most helpful, and they went through everything, and we chose them because of the good service, I think.
Brilliant.
So yes, let's get rid of that one. There we go. Oh, look.
Excellent.
It says, congratulations. We now have 4,000 hours of watch time. Yay. This is something we've been aiming for a while. So that's wonderful. Thank you, everybody out there, for watching for so long and enjoying the show. So anything else? Check your passports up to date. That's a good one, especially with this strange thing that's happened recently, where passports that were UK passports that were renewed about 10 years ago, if you renewed your passport early, what would happen is you wouldn't just get 10 years, they would add the amount of time that you were renewing early for, and they would add it on to the end. They would drop it in there. So actually your passport would look like it was valid for, anything up to 11 years or maybe more. And what happened recently was that some people were getting to the airports, and they were saying your passport isn't valid because it doesn't have the full 6 months after your departure date that we require, and your because of Brexit, that bit of time that they added on to the end of the renewal doesn't exist anymore. That's a message that the UK government were putting out on their website, and
Really?
it panicked a lot of people, and some people did get turned away from the airports because certain airlines looked at that and said, oh no, your passport's not valid, so you've not got enough time left on it. So there was a panic about that. But and the UK government keep taking down that part of the website where there's a calculator, but it seems to keep going back on there as well. And it was only a few airlines that were doing it, I think. But so I think it's a really good idea to look at the renewal date, so the actual start date of your passport, and work forward 9 years and 6 months from there. And if that's before the date that you leave, then it might be a good idea to renew your passport. Lots of people have been saying, but I paid for the full 10 years and everything. But what tends to happen is that people would renew their passport once every 10 years anyway, round about that. Some people renew a bit early, some people renew a bit late if they're going on holiday later. So it's not making that much difference. But it did affect one or two people.
Wonderful.
So,
well, okay, that's and you can renew, obviously, when you get here to Spain, you can renew your passport from Spain once you're here, and it's quite effective. The service is very good, actually. Well, we've never had a problem.
Oh,
so
that's good.
When you're happily living in here, I've just done my daughter's. That's why. Maybe a top tip for going through the airport, and this is what happened to us. We went to Ibiza a couple of years ago, and we had to put some stuff in the hold, and my daughter was quite young. They stuck the sticker on the photo page, and of course, when they got to the gate, to identify her, they ripped the sticker off, and it ripped the date of validity of the passport off. Oh, no. And they weren't going to let us on the plane at that point. She went, "Oh no, it's been ripped off." I said, "Well, you just ripped it off." So a small argument pursued, and we got on the plane, and we got there. We spoke to the police. They said, "No, it's fine. As long as you've got a barcode at the bottom, you can travel on it," because that's what we check is the barcode. But of course, then we came to Brexit, and we went to switch her residency card, because although she was born here, she's still a resident, born to two British citizens, and they wouldn't let us because the passport was defaced. So we had to renew her passport. But yeah, every renewal we've done, even for children or ourselves, has been very quick here and very efficient. Expensive, but very, very good.
Yeah, so. Mine seemed to have gone through really quick. Mine was just a brand new Irish passport, so I have to make the decision later on, because I've now got dual citizenship, whether I renew my British passport, whether I need to or not, when it runs out in 2026 or whenever it is. So that's something I'll report on in a few years, I suppose. Now, do we have some messages coming in here? We're talking about removals and, oh yes, pets. Hello, Donna. Thank you for this information. So it's an AHC that you require for a pet, animal health certificate, and your vet needs to fill out the paperwork. You can also get, I've been told, a 3-year rabies shot. Oh, that's interesting. And then you get your pet passports in Europe. So that's actually, you get them when you arrive in Europe? Or does the UK vet give you that? I wonder if you can tell us that, Donna. There we go.
That's somebody you need to get on. You maybe need to get a vet on the show one day.
That's a good idea. We should do a show all about moving your pet. I think
you get Spanish. Maybe I'll do some research. A Spanish vet that speaks English could go on the show, which could tell you what to do to register. Because I don't know. That'd be very handy to know. So there you go. There's some research for us.
Okay, we'll do that. So Liz, who's on Outtro aromatherapy now, she had a problem with her phone, and it wiped her out, and then she's had to rejoin. So she's changed from Outtro yoga to Outtro aromatherapy, just in case anybody was a bit confused by that. So she says, that's cool, Donna. We had to go to the vet and pay 140 for the shot and the passport itself, and we had to make sure it was more than 21 days before we go, as it's not valid otherwise. But of course, we're in an EU country, so it was a bit easier for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. And just before we wrap up, there's another question. Is there anything COVID related that you need to be looking at 6 months in advance? Like, so I suppose you can't, your COVID certificates and stuff like that from the UK. If you need booster shots, which I think they're talking about for winter now, that might be something else. I mean, You can't talk about your travel documents, but I didn't know if there's anything there or anybody who's come up against anything that's COVID related, 6 months in advance, of moving. There may be something there to look at as well.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So
Yeah.
anybody, if you've got any ideas on that, anything to say about that, you can do that in the comments below. Let's just zip down any more things on this list to see if there's anything we've missed out. We've had checking your passports. This is one for self-employed people like me, make sure you've got your sort of business ideas and your business plan kind of in your head, so that you know exactly what you're going to be doing when you get there. And like us, if you've got a sort of range of things that you do, it's a good idea to start making contacts and work out what the best ways to make money when you get there are. Also things like utility bills. Start investigating your overheads. What utility bills are you going to have, and what taxes you're going to pay, and what differences there are between province and other provinces if you're looking at more than one sort of province to live in. And you can look at your internet service, mobile services, plan those ahead. We decided on what mobile service we were going to have 6 months ago. Yeah. And it's a good time to find people like Chris and get in contact with Upsticks to get your move done efficiently.
Yeah, getting your network in place. Your support network, someone to help you obviously with the paperwork and everything else. I mean, that's essential for 6 months. And also Facebook is an amazing tool for research, and there's some amazing groups out there. There really is. But don't take everything as face value. Just, do the research into the comments you see. So don't get too scared, because lots of people post stuff which is absolutely correct, but it's only relevant to their personal situation. So
that's true.
Although I think there's a lot of great information out there on Facebook, certainly don't always relate it back to yourself, because it's things like immigration, what we work in, and traveling and stuff is so personal and individual to that person. It's a great place to get an overview of things and information, but create your own story as such.
Yeah, absolutely. And bear in mind that on social media, you're going to get a higher percentage of negative than you do in real life, because people always spread, bad messages spread a lot quicker than good messages on the internet. And
yes, that's true.
That's
Let's get some more people sharing positive stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there are some very good Facebook groups out there. So there we go. So it's also 6 months is all about making lots of lists and making a timeline. That's the sum up for today, I should think.
It is. Yeah.
And that's great. So is there any more questions? Let's just see. Barry from Unitech is talking. Talking of utility bills, are there many companies supplying gas and electric like in the UK? Yes, there are loads of them, Liz says. I think you can confirm that, Chris.
Yeah, there is, and more you'll find that there's English-speaking client assistance from everything from the online portals. So, for example, Endesa have an English online portal now, which has improved greatly. There's other companies. The marketplace is slightly more open, so yeah. I mean, you find it as time moves on. You can really look at your providers, and you'll find that a lot of support is in English now.
Yeah, that's good to know. And electricity prices are going up again, but I think that's happening everywhere. So we're looking seriously at getting some kind of solar panels, and even the mobile ones that you get for camper vans, that to save some kind of power on that.
We've paid enormous amount of electric, I think, compared to the UK. I memean, we never have a bill. We're a family of 4. Can't say. Sometimes, obviously, you try and be as conscious as possible, but the rigmarole of life, you do run in and turn stuff on, and and our bill is never less than 150 euros a month. So it's something to look at. Certainly, if you're budgeting and you have the time to sit down and say, you don't want to be restricted in your retirement to turning on the cooker at certain times of the day because it's more expensive. So, yeah, that's definitely some research you need to do.
Yeah, And there's a new timing system, isn't there? That it's split into three different rates, sort of
There
between
is.
midnight and 8 in the morning is the really cheap rate. All the weekend is the same, and then it's kind of
Yeah.
8 to 10 is the next one, the medium, and then it's expensive in the middle of the day, and there's another medium one, and then there's another expensive, and then it goes cheaper again at night. So it's a good time to turn on your washing machine is between midnight and 8 in the morning, as long as you're not in a set of flats where you've got everybody turning on their washing machine and the whole building rattling at night.
You need an electricity specialist on your show as well now to explain this. You see, I'm getting all these ideas for guests.
Yeah, good plan. I think an expert in solar panels as well might be really good. And
Yeah.
we're seriously hoping we can find a house that's all solar, so that our electricity bills aren't going to be big. So, because editing films is quite electricity heavy. So.
Right, yeah. I do know actually somebody. I'll suggest it to her. I know somebody who works for Energy Nordic who is absolute genius on everything electric. So I may suggest that she comes on and explains exactly what's going on, because it's very confusing.
Good plan. Thank you for that. Okay then. Well, I would say time's nearly up. We've run for 45 minutes this morning, so that's good. We've got plenty of information, and if you've liked the information, everybody do click on the like button. And if you have any more questions, I know there's still some in the comments. I might see if I can answer them after you've gone, Chris.
Brilliant.
And so we'll let you go now. It's been an absolute pleasure as usual.
Thank you. We're going to go see if we can see some aeroplanes practicing for tomorrow's show now. That's the plan.
Oh, lovely. I know you can. Can you just point the camera towards the beach? Show us the.
Oh yeah, show the view.
You can do that.
Today's view.
There's the view out of the window. There's the sea.
Yeah.
Just east of Malaga. There we go. Beautiful.
Just east of Malaga. So a couple of snorkelers out there, and hopefully some planes very soon.
Fabulous. Okay then.
Excellent.
We'll say goodbye to you. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time, and we'll be talking about when the paperwork hots up.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bye for now.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. Okay, so there you have it. Let's just check out the questions again to see if there's anything else that anyone has to say. Liz is saying, get a solar array. And Barry is saying he's dreading heating his swimming pool now. Yeah, I can imagine that, Barry. Barry says he's an industrial sparky by trade, so hopefully he'll be able to DIY it. Yes. And I think getting solar panels, I know there's a living off grid in Spain Facebook group that I've been looking at intently, and they have lots of ideas. A lot of them have built their own solar arrays and improvised, so that they're not paying for the huge 10, 11, 12 grand package. They've managed to sort something out for 4,000 or 5,000 for their house, which is providing certainly for all of their sockets and maybe other things, power tools and that kind of thing, which has really reduced their bills. Obviously, if they're off grid, then they don't want any bills at all. So they'll be doing wind and solar power and that kind of thing. And solar power in Spain is looking like a very, very good idea. So that's something to look at, definitely, when we get there. So that's all from this week. Next week on the Spanish Breakfast Show, we're going to be talking to Rafaela Viz, who is one of the official translators on the Spanish government's website list. And she's another regular contributor to Go Spain, which is an e-magazine, and they've also got a website and a page, a Facebook group, and that's very helpful. So we'll be finding out especially all about document requirements and what you need translated and what you need apostilled and all of that kind of stuff. So join us next Saturday at the usual time of 9:30 if you're in the UK or Ireland, or 10:30 if you're in Spain, or if you're anywhere else in the world, then you'll have to work it out for yourselves. Don't forget to check out the Liz and Skatz channel, and also, of course, Outtro Yoga and Outtro Aromatherapy. Those are two of Liz's channels. You can get free yoga and meditation classes, which are wonderful, and you don't often get these kind of things for free. So check those out. There are some lovely classes on there to get you relaxed while you think about moving to Spain. And of course, don't forget the t-shirts. There are lots of different colours. I might get myself a red one as well, which I love the idea of that. This is my brand new one, so I'm showing it off today. All of the links can be found in the description below to all of those channels, so look at that. And also for Chris's own website, upsticks.es, if you want somebody to help you with your relocation. So that's all for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do subscribe and click on the bell. Ting! We also have t-shirts with Ting, this logo here. So, and peace and love. And I will see you next week. Bye for now.